agree entirely that you can't really count on him to do that again.
Yes.
But the batting average for him has always been pretty good.
Pretty good.
It's this 330 is great.
Exactly. You know? And that 330 is like Miguel Cabrera territory. You know, that's what he's being drafted as a first. You know, he's not. I'm not saying he's not first round talent. I'm just saying I'd be more comfortable with him at like an ADP of like 18 or 19.
His 2019 season was 38 home runs, 113 RBIs, 295 batting average. I mean, that's like, yeah, 295 is not 330, but that's still helping you there. And
but that's what I just said. I said I project him around a 295 batting average.
Well, I'm just saying with 38 home runs and 113 RBIs, I think
good. They're good numbers. He's definitely the number one first baseman. I'm not arguing that. I just think his ADP, based on what he did last season, is a little too high for me going into this year.
When you're talking about that high, it's like if I were in a 15-team league and I was able to get Freddie Freeman as like, and I had the last pick, 15th pick, and I was able to get him as one of those two picks.
Sure.
I'd be ecstatic for it, and that's only 3-4 back.
I'm with that. That's exactly what I'm saying.
A little bit.
He's exactly what I'm saying.
He's a little dangerous at his level.
I'm just not taking him as my anchor to my fantasy team in the first round of drafts if I have the option to take somebody else. Just because I like a guy like DJ LeMahieu so much more with an ADP of around 29-30. You can get DJ LeMahieu as my first baseman. I'm taking him all day long.
Yeah.
Over Freddie Freeman. Just because I think the batting average, we've seen out of Freeman or out of LeMahieu is because
I can buy it. I could buy it. The only thing about LeMahieu is that is I have a question about the power. I don't know if he's a 28, 30 home run guy. And with the batting average and hitting 21, 22 is fine. But at that point, he's clearly behind Freeman in my mind. But yeah, I can see it. You know,
I dug into LeMahieu today. I cannot find anything in his numbers that showed me why he really broke out in New York.
Yeah, no, there's
absolutely nothing. I was digging through there and I just, looking at everything, looking at the hard hit percentage. He changed his approach to hitting the ball in the air just a little bit, but it wasn't any different than his last year in Colorado. So, I figured he would have more homers in Colorado. It never made sense to me why he never hit for power in Colorado, to be honest with you.
Well, he was when he left the Cubs, he's a Cub prospect. He was a no-hit all-glove player. And that was just like he's a guy that they said this guy can have a 10-year career as he's so good in the field and literally at multiple positions, and he can actually play a solid shortstop, believe it or not. But he's an A+ second baseman, A+ third baseman, and but he doesn't hit, he can't hit. That's why I let him go. Something happened. The crazy thing is that usually it happens before you go to Coors Field. It happened like in his third year at Coors Field. He's figured out how to hit. I don't know how that works. Wink, wink.
Who knows? All I know is he can hit now, and I really like his bat. And there's no reason that he can't come back. I mean, I don't think he's going to come hit 360 again, but there's no reason you can't expect a 330 batting average.
No, yeah, he's probably one of the only guys you can go, yeah, I pencil him for 330.
He's my number one targeted first baseman based on his ADP that I'm going to go after. You can't rank him that high because no one's going to draft him in the first round. I just am not. But
do you know what his ADP is? I have my third base
29.22 basically is what
which is the same spot as Arenado. Yeah, I would take LeMahieu.
I'll take LeMahieu over Arenado almost any day right now. Just because of the fact, one, I love positional eligibility, and he's flexible at three positions currently. Yeah. Third base, first. I love that on a team just because you never know when you're going to lose somebody and you got to slide a guy over, or someone's going to be hot off the waiver wire and you can pick up and slide a guy around. And positional flexibility is
to me, positional flexibility is the thing you grab when they're really roughly the same. But I don't go on my way for it, except for at the end because and that's why I mentioned guys like Dylan Moore or whatever at the end, because you need to have sort of those. You have to back up 9 positions with 4 players, so you need it in your backups. You know what I mean?
Yes. So, well, without giving up too much of my draft strategy this year, I'm gonna outright say that I think DJ LeMahieu could be my most valuable fantasy draft pick this year. He might be the person that I may build the majority of my teams around if I have the ability to, based on his ADP. I'm dead serious. I love it. I feel like batting average is so scarce.
I'm not knocking you at all.
because it would allow
there is
me
that.
it would allow me to take a person like
That's a good point.
Matt Olson later in the draft, someone who I'm pissed scared about batting average with, but he's got the potential to come out and hit 40 bombs this year, no questions asked.
No, that's a good point. That based on what we saw last year, people are not hitting for average.
They just aren't.
And
it's one of those things where it's scarce, and you can't. And the point I was making is you can't depend on a guy like Freddie Freeman to hit for high batting average. Same thing with the guy I have ranked number 4, Jose Abreu.
You guarantee you that he'll be above league average on batting.
He's going to hit close to 300. He's just not going to be a 330 guy. And the difference between 300 and 330 is a big difference. No, especially in daily fantasy or in rotisserie, especially. I think it's the most important, or even points leagues where you're scoring for a year round. You're trying to stack stats for a year versus weekly leagues.
When I'm playing roto, I really avoid average players that are negative average players. I just avoid them. Like I don't pick any of those guys. I don't think any of them are worth it.
It's hard to, though, in 2021, man. So many guys are average scares anymore.
Well,
many.
No, I'm saying guys that are destructive to your average are guys that hit under 250. A guy hits 256 is fine.
Really? There's a lot of good guys that you're eliminating just now.
Not that many.
Yeah. You're eliminating Pete Alonso possibly, Matt Olson possibly, Max Muncy. Paul Goldschmidt,
Max Muncy. If you notice,
Mike
at third base wasn't in my top 20. Moustakas is, he's down there a little bit, but it's like you can draft and avoid that. You can avoid that and have, and so it's like give me somebody that hits 90% of the home runs Moustakas does, but hits 270, and that's part of the reason why we had that argument that talk about Vladimir Guerrero. Why do I have him that high? It's because he's a guy that, looking at his package, could do all that stuff and still hit you 308.
Where do you have him ranked?
I had him as the 5th.
Yeah, I have him as the 5th ranked first baseman currently.
And that's the reason, because
I love Vladdy Jr. Don't get me wrong.
The rest of the package with that. No, I'm just saying that goes to your first base stuff. But for the most part, I avoid those guys. And I've done a pretty good job. I draft. It's been a thing in rotisserie where people kind of look at averages as an afterthought, and I don't. I draft to average.
I love it. Yeah, I agree 100%.
And I've been doing it for a long time. Occasionally, you wind up at the end going, I don't have stolen bases, and you grab some crappy player, and you do that like 4 or 5 years in a row, and you read it 4 to 5 years. You stop doing it.
Yeah. I just miss those good old days when you could draft. I mean, I've been playing fantasy. I know you've probably been playing longer than I have. I've been playing since 2001.
I think we're about the same time on baseball.
I miss those good old days when I could draft a Miguel Cabrera or Albert Pujols and just lock in that, know he's going to be that 330, 40 home run hitter. We just don't have that guy right now. Mike Trout's pretty close, but he's not consistent with the average every year, and he's not consistently hitting over 300 around. Exactly, that's what. But he's not consistently. When I look at a guy who hits 330, man, that's a different level of hitter, man.
No, it is. But if you stock your lineup with the Mike Trouts and Andrew McCutcheons and the guys that hit 278 and the Michael Brantleys that hit 288.
Sure.
It's not.
Michael Brantley's going to hit 300. He's hit 300 the last 2 years in a row. That guy's awesome.
No, I'm just saying the guys exist.
They do.
It's like, but it's like I'm at a point. I can remember drafting Adam Dunn. I'm at a point in my fantasy career where I would not draft Adam Dunn now.
I love Adam Dunn.
You have to literally. It's like when you bring Pete Alonso, I'm like, who cares? Because if he doesn't hit 50 home runs, he's not a good first baseman in my mind.
Pete Alonso's interesting. I have him ranked 6 on my list. I love Pete Alonso, to be honestly, man. The one thing I look at, he had a really low BABIP last year. His BABIP was all the way down to 240 last year. Well, and I think if he has more of a 280 BABIP, we might see another. I mean, the power numbers were right there last year. Nothing really changed. He's going to hit 50 homers again.
One thing you see historically out of left-handed first baseman, and he is a left-handed first baseman,
yes,
is that they have low BABIPs because they're easy to shift.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense.
It's when BABIP first came around, they said people would hit 300. 300 BABIP is like we expect. The
league average is like 285, something like that.
Yeah, if you're a lefty, it's actually even lower than that. And so
interesting.
I don't think that his BABIP is so crazy low And I also think that 285 is probably not doable for him, and that's the reason why I would take. There's a lot of first basemen I like. I would take. I said before, like I like Brandon Belt. I would take Brandon Belt and wait.
I love Brandon Belt. He's on my sleepers list.
So anyway, keep going.
Let's see here. After that, let's see. Or I skipped Vladdy Jr., but we already kind of talked about him. We didn't really touch on Jose Abreu. I had him at 4th. Last year he had a 350 BABIP, which kind of led to his high batting average. I think you're going to see more of a normalized BABIP. You're going to see what we've seen from him basically the last, I think, 5 years of his career.
Yeah, no, he's a good player, but that's actually one of the reasons why I don't. It's like what do you expect out of him? 30 home runs, 110 RBIs.
Yeah, I mean, but think about it like this:
300 average, like a 293 average. Sure. And it's like, yeah, that's good.
His ADP is too high for me. Like at an ADP of 34, I'm just not buying Jose Abreu. I'm not buying Abreu or Freddie Freeman this year.
I think Abreu and Rizzo are pretty close to the same player when you come to what stats you expect from him. And for years, we've been overrating Rizzo and underrating Abreu. This year, we got it the other way around. We're going to overrate Abreu and underrate Rizzo.
I don't know, man. I think we might see Abreu have another really good year. He's got a lot of good players. That's going to be a really good team. That's going to be a high energy, high win team. He's going to have a lot of RBI opportunities. Jose Abreu he's going to almost pay for that ADP. It's going to be borderline for me.
Yeah, that's going to be if he has the kind of season that he had last year, it's going to be borderline. He's going to pay for the ADP he gets.
But here's what I wanted to point out to you, though.
The most you can get out of him is that.
Here's the thing about Jose Abreu with his barrel rate. So he had 5 years of a barrel rate of around 8%, but the last 2 years it was 12, and then last year it was all the way up to 14%. Which is, if he can sustain that kind of numbers, we might see Abreu put together. I mean, you're going to figure he's a Cuban defector. Who's I argue just now getting comfortable in the major leagues.
I'm on record saying I like Teoscar Hernandez a lot. He had a barrel rate of 22% last year. If he does that, he hits 80 home runs.
Yeah, I love Teoscar Hernandez. And so it's I've always liked him.
Well, I'm just saying that it's last year's stats are just weird, and
I understand, but if you look at the last 2 years, is what I was saying. Like if you look at 2019, he had a 12% barrel rate, which was an improvement. You know what I mean? So if you take those 2 years and you kind of look at them in conjunction, it kind of it tells a story to me personally. Like I said, the BABIP was a little high at 350, but his BABIP is, has always been about 315, 310 if you look at his career numbers.
And he can have it because if you're a 300 hitter, your BABIP is going to be higher.
Exactly.
He's a guy that pushes 300 because
he's going to hit 295. So I mean, he's going to almost pay for that ADP this year. If I can get him, if he falls a little bit, like maybe like 5 or 10 slots.
He won't. He's got way too much love this year.
I know he won't.
For me, the only reason I'm not downplaying the talent of Jose Abreu. I'm just a complete value person.
I am too.
And I don't see any value in Abreu where he's getting picked.
Do you see value in Cody Bellinger? Because I don't see it there at 15 ADP where he's going.
Yeah, he's a little high. I probably won't get him. I mean, when you get way down your list, I'll start talking about first base when I like. I like Brandon Belt. Yeah,
here's the deal with Bellinger. I looked at his numbers. I dug into him, and to be honest with you, he is the riskiest player in the top of the draft. I'm just going to go on record saying it. I don't want any part of him this year. He's got
that crazy range. I mean, like he could literally hit 48 home runs and 120 RBIs, and he could be.
I feel like that 2019 season is almost the outlier season at this point because if you look at his 2020 numbers, if you look at like the exit velocity. The fly ball rate, etc., a few other things, they kind of fall in line with his 2018 numbers where he was more or less an average hitter. He hit 25 homers and like 80 RBIs. So Cody Bellinger, he's one of those guys. He's going to have to prove it to me this year to be worth it next year kind of a deal.
He's one of those guys where if I was drafting and he fell to the 16th pick and I had the pick, I might draft him, but I'd be praying that someone else took him ahead of me.
I'm just not doing it. There's no way. Like I said, because I'm building my draft strategy around targeting LeMahieu in that second round or third. So I'm not even thinking about Bellinger. Like I said, everything depends on where you're placed in the draft. That is a big part of it. But my game plan is gonna start right there. So I'm already going to eliminate Freddie Freeman and Cody Bellinger off the top of my list. I just know I don't want those guys.
That is the weird thing about making a list. Like you feel like compelled to put these guys in there, but there are guys like. No way in hell. I believe that this guy should be the 5th rated X thing, but there's no way in hell I'm drafting him.
That's why we're talking about it the way we're talking about it.
If you really believe that, you should throw him down. I threw Max. There's no way in hell I'm drafting Max Muncy. He was my 23rd third baseman.
Wow.
No way in hell.
Okay.